wood trees that Kimberly Clark owned. So Hearst had a pretty great hatred for Mexicans, and in fact, using his newspapers, managed to drive about 17,000 Mexicans. They just drove them over the border because he said they were all marijuana smokers. Now, for years, the head of the Drug Administration, the old BNDD, Harry Anslinger, who was related to Mellon, which was DuPont's partner. Mellon is the only banker who's Secretary of the Treasury. He was the only banker for DuPont. And he appointed Harry Anslinger. After 20 years of telling us that it caused all sorts of violence, and you know marijuana is the greatest violence inhibitor in the world, they changed up, and then they said it's a communist plot to make us pacifists, that the communists want to remove our will to fight. Do you remember that? I mean, that part I can remember at my age. There was a huge anti-marijuana campaign that said it was all a communist plot. Well, when that finally wore off, they started to tell us, well, we can't legalize marijuana because it destroys your brain cells. And of course, then we found out it actually stimulates the growth of brain cells. And people like Carl Sagan and Margaret Mead and lots of others had been proponents of marijuana, and it wasn't hard to figure out that it didn't make people stupid. And so they come up with one excuse after another to keep marijuana illegal, but there isn't a legitimate excuse. The last one they came up with, they said, it's a gateway drug. Gateway to what? There's no such thing as a gateway drug. More people who do heroin started with coffee and alcohol and prescription drugs than ever use marijuana. Generally, people who use marijuana are fooled out. They don't really want what heroin does to you. If there is such a thing as a gateway drug, this state, Florida, is the king of the gateway drugs, because this is where you can get pills and opiates without any trouble whatsoever. And they're a bigger cause of problems than marijuana could ever be. Marijuana is safer than alcohol, and it's a very important medicine. Could you put on Cannabis Science? Did you run that? Cannabis Science? This is a very, very short video with a group of very, very distinguished doctors and researchers.